I'm ready. What's up, people? Annabelle here, and you're watching Dreams to Reality podcast. This is episode 48, and we have a very special show for you guys today. We're actually at the Black House MMA gym in Gardena, California. They're actually our sponsor for today's show. Make sure to check them out if you're in the area and want to be one of the best. You got to train with the best, and this is the place to do it. Today's show, guys, we have a professional MMA fighter. Her record is 9-4. She is a UFC vet. She's also the two-time former LFA champion and also the future LFA champion. She's going to be fighting August 4th in El Paso, Texas, my hometown, El Chuco, shout out. She is reigning from Antioquia, Medellin, Colombia. Please help me welcome the Colombian Queen, Sabina Mazo. Welcome. We are here. What's up, Sabina? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be
No,
here. That intro
thank
was
you.
A bomb, really.
I mean, it's the song that made it. You know, who doesn't like the Fugees?
I want to fight now.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, I've never seen anybody walk into a fight with the Fugees playing. What's your go-to song?
Well, I already fought with I went to fight with one of their songs.
Really?
Yeah, because I love Lauryn Hill.
Oh, me too.
I love her. I've been to her concert.
No way.
Wow.
You know what's funny? On my way here, because I'm coming from Pasadena, I was listening to all kinds of music, and I was like singing in the car, and I was like, my voice was almost cracking a little bit because I was going hard, you know. And I was like, shoot, I should stop singing, you know, because I have to talk for an hour, you know. And I was thinking, I was like, you know, what is Sabina like? Because you're from Colombia, you know, but you're out here now, and obviously all the different influences of music. I was like, what is she into? But when I was like, hey, what's your vibe? You're like, put some Fuji. I was like, all right, I dig that. Yeah. So what song was it? Killing Me Softly?
No, but I love that song for
That's
sure.
That's a good song.
But I think it was Sea Lots. I think I'm pronouncing that good. If not, I'm sorry.
Oh,
but
okay.
Sea Lots, that's one of my favorites from Fugees. So I went to fight with one of those.
Yeah.
Guantanamera as well.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's actually, it's been twice that I've been with Fugees. So I love them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your day. I know you train like crazy, and you're about to have a fight, a championship fight. So I'm very interested in hearing your story. I met you not too long ago. I was shooting a video for your friend. Piera Rodriguez, yeah, and she introduced me to you, and she's like, oh, she's from Colombia, and we got to talk, and I know you had some ideas as far as starting your own podcast show, so I was like, you know what, why don't you come on mine, we can get to know each other a little bit more, I get to hear your story, and we'll go from there. So I know that you're a professional fighter, I know you're in the UFC, and that's not an easy thing to do. You know, most people that get into fighting when it comes to mixed martial arts, that's their goal. They want to get into the UFC and they want to be the UFC champion because that's like the epitome of success when it comes to being an MMA fighter. Yeah. You know, so for someone like you that just came from Colombia, and I didn't realize, I asked you, you know, what's your amateur record? You're like, I don't have an amateur record. No. You know, you went straight into the pros. That's amazing that you were able to get into the UFC. So, I mean, let's start from the beginning. How old were you when you started in this journey as far as MMA?
Yeah, so, you know, I didn't start it that young because a lot of people start, like, very, very young, like when they're toddler or whatever, and their parents put them to the gym. But I actually got into my first boxing class when I was 15, almost 16 years old. Okay. I'm 26 right now, so that was 10 years ago.
Okay.
Not that long.
Yeah. So you started off as a striker then? You were...
Yeah, well, I started with a boxing class and a jiu-jitsu class. So the first day I got there, they were like, oh, try this boxing thing. I was like, sure. I didn't know what it was. You know? I didn't really watch boxing.
Really?
Nothing. My family didn't really introduce me to martial arts. You know, it was not a thing.
Did you do it just because, you know, you thought it was cool, or did you see someone else doing it, or did someone invite you? Because most people, when they join some kind of sport, especially a combat sport where you're getting punched in the face, you know, it's usually either their dad's a boxer or they've been watching, you know, boxing or some kind of combat sports on TV that kind of influences them. But you're saying your family wasn't really into it.
No.
What was it then?
So I did try a lot of sports. when I was growing up. And there's this class in a regular gym, like let's say like a LA Fitness gym.
Yeah.
I went there to lift weights and everything.
Yeah.
And I saw this MMA class, and I was like, that looks like fun. You know, people are like doing arm bars and, you know, punching stuff. And I was like, I want to try it. And I did try it over there.
Yeah.
But it was very like more towards the cardio part, you know.
Okay. It was like a not a Zumba class, but like a kickboxing class where it's more like we're here to burn calories, not to like fight.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I liked it. And then a very good friend of mine at that time, that was my coach there in that gym, he was like, you know, I think you should try boxing. Like, let's go to another gym and like you try it out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, sure, let's go. Let's try it out. And then the weekend after, we went there, and I did the first boxing class ever. And I was like, wow, I want to do that tomorrow. Like, I have to come back tomorrow right here.
Yeah. And you were 15 at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I was 15, almost 16.
Yeah.
But then next day I went there, and there was like no boxing class. There was like a jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, I'll give it a try. But I didn't knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu was what really engaged me to the sport.
Okay.
I started like with jiu-jitsu. I did some boxing a little bit, but my main thing was jiu-jitsu. I focused on it like for a year and a half, only jiu-jitsu.
Okay. So your passion started off with jiu-jitsu
yeah.
more than anything. And it led from that one boxing class. You go back the next day, they're training jiu-jitsu. You're like, I'll try this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What about jiu-jitsu is it that you found more captivating than the boxing? Because obviously you had done boxing before. What about it was it that made you want to come back the next day and keep doing it?
I think number one was that I got so destroyed in the training.
You got beat up?
I got so beat up in the train. I couldn't do nothing, and people were like doing submissions like crazy, and I couldn't do nothing. I was like, no, I have to go back tomorrow, and I have to learn something to defend myself and to attack. And I'm very competitive.
Yeah,
so
I can sense from what you're just saying.
Super competitive.
Yeah,
and that was one of the things. You know, I have to go back. I have to learn the technique. I have to, you know, I want to do this. And it was like a month after I did my first competition.
Yeah.
And that was like, well, I didn't do that well. I got like second place.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sure that I wanted to compete more, and I wanted to train more.
Yeah.
That was like the thing that I really, you know, I was sure about training there. Like my family saw it as a hobby, but for me, since the beginning, it started to be like a passion, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. And I can tell that you're very competitive, not only from what you're saying now, but just watching your career. And I can also tell that you have a natural athletic gift, you know, which is probably why your friend invited you to go to the boxing. He probably saw something in you when you were in that, you know, cardio class.
Yeah.
Like, she probably should be punching someone in the face right now instead of, you know, kicking the air and punching the air. And that's one of the key indicators when it comes to success is being competitive, you know, because the world is competitive.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wants to be the best. And if you're not competitive and you're just lackadaisical and you just kind of go with the flow of things, you're going to probably lose in life, you know? So as far as succeeding long-term, not only just in MMA, but in anything, you have to want to be the best, you know, whether you're podcasting, you're an MMA, you're a hairdresser, whatever it is. Guess what? There's thousands of other podcasts. There's thousands of other people that want to be a UFC fighter. There's thousands of other hairdressers, but what's going to make the difference is, you know, that competitive edge.
Yeah, you're right. But it gets to a point in the high level where this kind of things can play against you.
Explain that.
Yes, you can be very competitive, and that's very important to succeed in life in anything that you want to, like you said, a podcast or this or that. But you can get so much into it that it becomes, you know, an obsession about it. So this can play not in the best way. You know, you have to know how to handle it, and I'm still learning, you know. But, so yeah, it's a tool that it can be used for your favor or against you. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that happening, you know, where you're so obsessed that, other parts of your life are kind of in disarray,
Yeah.
or you're no longer truly finding joy in the act of what you're doing. And that happens a lot, where people start off with a task and it's a passion, it's a joy. Like, I love doing this. And then at one point it gets so competitive where you're just focusing on that win that you're like, man, I hate this. I don't like this anymore.
And you start losing the purpose of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You start losing of the path, not only the goal when you get there and the victory or the belt or you open a business, but you're really missing the path. And I think that's the most important, like the joy of each day that you do. Yeah,
the joy of the journey. Yeah. And I interviewed this young lady maybe a few months ago. Well, it's probably been longer, probably like 6 months. Her name's Elena Crevar. And at the time, she was like 15 years old. She's 16 now, and she just had her first fight in the UFC, but she only does jiu-jitsu. She's like this little child prodigy, and she's like destroying black belt adults, left and right. And she said something very similar, like when I asked her, like, what was it about jiu-jitsu that you enjoy so much? And she said it's that you can always get better. She said there's always something new to learn. And she loves that process. So when I see her competing, like, I can tell that she's loving what she's doing. She likes learning. She likes challenging herself. And you're right. At the end of the day, if you're not happy with what you're doing, like, what's the freaking point? You lost the point, as far as what you're doing. But I mean, clearly this is something that has been not only a passion, but a career for you. I mean, you're now here in the United States. You're from Colombia, right?
Yeah.
So tell me that story, because I did read your bio. I can't remember if it was, I think it was your Wikipedia on Wikipedia or something, and it said that you were born in Miami, right?
No. So, no, I'm not. I was not. I was born in Colombia.
Oh, okay.
Medellin. But a very young age, like a year and a half.
Oh, that's what I read. You came for a little bit.
Yeah, I went to Miami just because in that time, in 1998, 99, it was very dangerous, where I was living in Colombia.
Yeah, we talked about that. You're from the exact same city that Pablo Escobar, the cocaine kingpin of the world, which at one point was the richest man in the world. Was born and lived, and that's where his cartel was out of.
Exactly. But I didn't really lived in that time. I can't really say an experience about it because I didn't pass through it. I heard stories about my family that, my parents did live through that. But after he died, there was still like a lot of insecurity. There's other problems.
There's other cartels too. There was a Cali cartel still around.
La Guerrilla as well.
Yeah.
So it was a really dangerous time, and my parents took the decision to move to Miami for a little bit until like things were a little bit more calm. Yeah,
for people that don't really know the story of Pablo Escobar in Colombia, it's a crazy story. Pablo Escobar was born literally in the same city, Antioquia, Medellin, Colombia, and he came from nothing, and he was a smuggler. And then one day he came across the cocaine trafficking business, and in the early 80s it exploded, especially in the United States. Everybody was doing cocaine out here, so he was the main transporter of that drug from that area, from Colombia, Peru, and everywhere out there to the United States. And the guy became the richest man in the world. He was a multi-billionaire. And at that time, Colombia was very, very wealthy because of that. So was Miami, but specifically Colombia was very wealthy at that time. And he was kind of like a philanthropist as well. He would like give money to the poor. He would build like,
there's hate and love into
that. Well, the problem was that at one point he got into a war, literally a war with the government, and it became extremely dangerous because he became a terrorist. Yeah. He was bombing, places, random places. He was killing civilians, and it was dangerous for anybody. There was wars between him and other rival cartels, and the government was after him. There was even organizations of people that wanted to find him. And during this time, which was like the early 90s, it was extremely dangerous in Colombia, and after he died, which, the government killed him, there was still a lot of turmoil, in the country, and the money was still there, but it was just, it was very, very dangerous. So for you growing up in Colombia, Did you have to experience any kind of hardships, or do you come from like a middle class or wealthy family or anything like that?
Yeah, so a middle class. I grew up in a middle class house, and yes, there was like dangerous things, like, but growing up everywhere.
Yeah.
People stealing, people, you know, killing each other just for a cell phone, or
Jesus.
for it's things like that. But because there's so much poverty that people had no choice. Let's say they had no choice and choose violence.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the first years of my life, I didn't really experience, and I was very young. I wouldn't even remember.
Yeah.
So so that's why I was in Miami. We stayed there for like 3 years.
Okay.
And
from what age to what age?
Like 1 to 4.
Do you remember it all?
I do remember a lot of things.
Really?
A lot. I don't even
That's
know
crazy.
why. But I remember the school I went, the preschool. I remember where my parents used to work. I remember.
I don't remember nothing
houses.
from when I was like 4 years old.
I don't know. Maybe because I don't know. I don't really know. But I really like it over there. I have family still there.
Yeah.
And, my Spanish was from there at the beginning. All my parents' friends were like Cubans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of got some base there. When I went back to Colombia, it was a little bit weird because I spoke Spanglish.
Oh, okay.
I mixed English with Spanish words.
Yeah.
And then no one really understood. Imagine like little kids, like, what is this girl saying?
What is she saying? What is that word?
Exactly. So I had to really focus in Spanish and like with professors and everything the first years of my life back in Colombia.
Yeah. So you were in Colombia, from when you were 4 or 5 years old up until you came back to the U.S. Now, when you came back to the U.S., was it to pursue an MMA career, or was it for a different reason?
It was for my MMA career. I was 18 when I moved from Colombia to here.
Yeah.
And it was for my MMA career. For sure, I came to study. I went to college here, but my plan was MMA.
Now, when you came to the U.S., did you come by yourself? Did you come with friends, family? Do you have anybody out here? Where did you land, and what school did you go to?
So, no, I came here alone. I mean, my parents came with me just to
set you up.
Yeah, like where are you going? Like we understand that you fight. We understand the gym that you're going with in California. Here in Huntington Beach, I arrived at King's MMA, and my parents let me there. I went to Orange Coast College.
Okay.
And they let me go. My mom kind of suffer a little bit right there.
I bet.
I'm the little girl of the family.
The baby's leaving the nest.
Yes, exactly.
My mom still cries for me. Like, I left when I was 18 too, but they live in Minnesota. And like every year, it's like, when are you gonna come back? I'm like, Mom, I'm a grown ass man now, man. I've been married and divorced, and I've had like a lot of careers. Like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not gonna come home.
Yeah.
But they still, it's that motherly love. For sure. The baby, because I was the baby too. I only have one older brother, but it's like, they always want you to be with them, and I understand that. And it's tough, especially you're moving across the world, a different country, a different language, a different everything. Even though you did spend some time in Miami, I mean, you lived most of your life at that point in Colombia.
And with my family.
Yeah, and with your family. And I remember when I first moved out, like the first year, I was struggling, I was having like, I guess you could call it separation anxiety, where I was like, I'm missing my family. Like everything was awkward and weird. And it took a little while for me to like kind of get up on my own feet.
But whenever people ask me like, oh, how was that first year? And like listening to you, like that was hard and everything. It felt so natural for me. Yeah. Like I was very young, and I look back and I was like, wow, I really took that risk. But I didn't doubt it 1 second of the decision I took.
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't fit anymore in Colombia. I had to grow. I had to learn and expand my knowledge in MMA. So for me, it was very easy to move. There was
no professional leagues in Colombia.
I mean, there was gyms, but there was one league where I fought. I did my first MMA pro fight over there. But they didn't do that many shows, and
Yeah.
and the opportunities were not that much. You know, my second fight
Yeah.
was even in Costa Rica, was not in Colombia.
Oh, wow.
So, and just because I wanted to learn and I knew my path, it was not going to be in Colombia.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome that, you know, because some people look at it as a risk, you know, and the reason why people look at things as a risk is because they don't have a plan, you know, 2, they don't have a vision, and 3, they don't have belief. But when you have those 3 things, you don't really fear as much, you know? So like, imagine if right now they're like, hey, you need to move to Africa tomorrow. I would probably be scared because I don't have a plan. I don't have a vision, and I don't believe I want to be there. I don't want to go there. So I'll be like scared, like, what the hell, what am I going to do in Africa? Like, I don't know how to speak the language. But if I was, you know, I had a business in mind, and I had a plan for it, and I had a vision in my head of what I wanted to do long term, and it required me to go to Africa, and I believed in myself, like, I'm going to fucking win. I'm going to do this shit. Then I would go into that adventure, exactly. You know, it probably excited, you know, probably excited. So that makes a lot of sense that you didn't have, it was like natural to you.
Yeah. And I think, even like right now, I would go anywhere to accomplish my dreams, you know?
Yeah.
So I already did that from my family. That I think that was the hardest part, you know, to detach. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah. From my family.
Detach. Yeah.
From my family.
Spread your wings and fly.
Yeah.
You know, leave the nest, as we like to say.
Yeah. I still talk to my family for sure. They're my number one supporters. They go to my fights. But I already made that step. So for me, it was very, very important. And I look back and really, I was very brave to take that and like going alone. But yeah.
Yes. So that is, you know, the purpose of this podcast is to interview people that are successful in their chosen path, their chosen career, and to find out their journey. You know, and the first part of any journey is called, you know, the step into the unknown. It's leaving your home, leaving your natural habitat, leaving the place that feels safe, the place that you're comfortable with, your mother's womb, your mother's home, I feel safe here. In order to start a journey and adventure, you need to leave that comfort. And there's some risk that goes along with it. And as you step into your journey, you know, usually the things that come across is you meet certain people along your journey, which we call mentors, that help you along the way to teach you, like, hey, don't go down that path. You're gonna fall. Do this so you can be successful. And I know you have a couple of coaches that have helped you along the way. But when you first came out here, what gym did you say you landed in?
I landed King's MMA.
King's MMA, yeah. And now you're training.
Rafael Cordeiro, it's his name.
Awesome. So talk to me a little bit about your beginnings in the MMA professional world. How did you get into the UFC? And also, who are some of your mentors that kind of guided you along the way?
Yeah. So talking a little bit of what you were saying about going out of that comfort zone. Yes, it's very symbolic when you leave your house or your mother, your family.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's a battle that everyone has to do every day. Even if you already stepped out of, you know, that comfort zone of family.
Yeah, the bed is comfortable.
Yeah, even like small things like that. But also, I don't know, it doesn't need to be in the sport, but in your work, like, oh, I'm comfortable doing my work this same way. You know, no, you got to get out of that and break the pattern, you know, because that's when you're really going to grow and you're going to feel that. But it's very tough, you know, and then when you put it to the sport, it's very tough that you do the same thing all the time. Oh, no, I have to do it different. Yeah. You know, and I feel that's one of the paths that you have to take to be successful in anything you do.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, where you repeat things over and over again. I was listening to one of my mentors. His name's Arash Dibazar. He has his own MMA gym as well up in San Jose. And one of the things he talks about is like mastery, you know, is becoming a master at your craft. And what it requires is, you know, the repetition. You do the repetition over and over and over and over again until it's hardwired in your brain. And then when you're actually in combat, you're no longer thinking about it. It's like second nature. And the thing about what you're saying is very interesting, because there's a lot of people that, you know, have drilled the same thing over and over and over again, and then they get comfortable. in that thing, and they don't want to change it. But then it's like, okay, you need to change it because this is why you're losing.
Yeah.
And you're right. You even after you, like you said, you left your home, you still have to go through that battle. Hey, this is one of the areas where you're not doing good in, and we need to change this habit, this habitual thing that you've been doing. And it is very difficult, both psychologically and physically, because in MMA, it's a physical sport, so you're talking about actual moves physically.
Yeah, it's easier to see it there.
Yeah, exactly. But for most people, it's mostly a psychological thing. Like, hey, you've been doing these same patterns with your life, and, you're on your 4th divorce now, and you get a new job every 3 weeks and shit, and you can't.
And small details like, we're all humans, and I don't know, you go home and you have your spouse or your wife or whatever.
Yeah.
Do things different. Like maybe you're tired from work or from whatever, and you just go straight to bed and not even talk, look to the eyes of the person you love.
Yeah.
So the small things, small things that start to make you really live and be present. So
yeah, the little things are what make the difference. And I tell people all the time, the difference between a professional and an amateur is attention to detail. It's the little things that matter. It's like you think it's not a big deal, it's a big deal, especially when you're competing on a high level. Like I've worked in a gym for like 10 years, and I have a lot of friends that are like bodybuilders and all of that. And we talk about like, to become a professional bodybuilder, obviously you have to have certain genetics, you have to have certain work ethic, you have to eat a certain way, you have to take certain drugs, you have to lift certain kind of weights. But once you're talking about like the top people in that, it's a dogfight. It's like the little tiny details, like were they lean enough on the day, where are they missing a certain little thing here, was their posing. It's like the little tiny details is what's going to make the difference between you winning and losing. And that's what's so exciting about MMA. It's like when two people go into a cage, like anything could really happen, like when I grew up back in the day, there was no MMA. You're a boxer, you do Muay Thai, you do jiu-jitsu, you're a karate guy, and everybody had their sport that they had their skills in. And then when the UFC came out, and they started to combine all of them, you got to see, what was efficient and what wasn't. And it's evolved so freaking much now, man. Like I see like I'm talking about like that girl, Elena Kravar, she does things I'm like, Jesus Christ, like she could probably beat up like dudes that are like been doing it for like a long time, because it's evolved. The sport has evolved, and humans have evolved. Like we continue to evolve, so I think we should treat ourselves the same way. We should constantly be improving, evolving, becoming better, and being the best version of ourselves in order to have fulfillment, happiness, and success, and I think if you follow your passion, you're going to be able to accomplish that. So let's go into the story as far as getting into the UFC. Because like I mentioned, that is not an easy task to accomplish. So did you have to win the 2 LFA Championship belts before you got into the UFC?
So after I did my first 2 pro fights, one in Colombia, the second one in Costa Rica, I moved here. But the first year I moved, I had a knee injury.
Oh, okay.
So I trained for like couple of months, and then I had to go back to Colombia, do a surgery, and then come back to the US and like, okay, I'm gonna continue, my career, and my training, basically, So it was kind of a setback, but not, because I evolved a lot in that time, and I was very, very young. I was now I see like I was kind of preparing for what was coming. So that took me like a year and some months. After I did my first LFA fight, it was not for the belt. It was my first knockout.
Nice.
And then
was it a head kick?
It was a head kick.
I always see your highlights. You're a master of those head kicks.
Yeah, that was a head kick.
Yeah, those are brutal knockouts, by the way.
It was brutal. Yeah. And then the second fight after that was again another head kick, the same way.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to fight for the belt. I fought for the belt.
Yeah.
I defended the belt. And then I went to the UFC.
Oh, wow.
So it took me 4 fights in the U.S. Or 6 fights in total to get to the UFC.
What year was it that you got into the UFC? Because, people, when they they see the UFC now. They see a gigantic corporation that's like I mentioned, the epitome of success when it comes to MMA. But at one point it wasn't. It's not that old of a company, and women's MMA, it's pretty new. It hasn't been around for a long time. No. When it first started off, there was no women's MMA. It was just dudes beating the shit out of each other. And then it evolved. Luckily, they made some really smart decisions. And, they got lucky also, by the way, in a couple of times where the company got saved because they were so close to just being done. I think what's the name of that show? It's where people compete, and if they win, they get the contract with the UFC.
Oh, the Contender Series.
Yeah. That was one of the big things that kind of saved them as well. Because a lot of people were watching it, and then they got bought out, and it continued to grow. And then when Ronda Rousey came into the scene and kind of like blew up women's MMA, that's when it became more. One, I would say okay and normal for people to see female fighters. Because before that, they were like, we don't want to see that, Or they thought they didn't want to see that. Yeah. Even the UFC didn't think people wanted to see that.
They didn't want it.
Yeah, but now it's like people crave it. Like they want to see, female MMA fighters, and it's become more and more popular. And now it's a booming business, So what year did you say you got into the UFC?
I think it was 2019 or 18. I'm not sure right now, but I think around that time.
Yeah.
And basically. Well, yeah, my manager contact also the UFC and everything was set up because I was showing with results with the LFA fights. Yeah. And LFA is one of the like the biggest league here in the US. Now they're doing shows in Brazil, so it's like a very high level where they take fighters and bring them to UFC. Yeah. Sometimes Bellator, but it's a big way or like path to go to the UFC.
Yeah, it's like a little training ground.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the UFC people are looking and they're like, who is going to be the next person?
Yeah. I mean, that's usually awesome. There's like more than 3 or 4 fighters on each card. UFC card that come from LFA. So
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a lot. Brandon Moreno this weekend. He's
really? He's from LFA too?
He's from LFA. Also the Pantoja, the guy that's fighting.
Oh no way, Pantera?
No, I don't know Pantera, but Pantoja, the guy that's gonna fight Brandon Moreno. He's a Brazilian guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're both comes from LFA. Yeah. So there's so many fighters that come.
I didn't know that. I knew like Cage Warriors was one of that. They kind of got a lot of people, but they were more like from like the European side, like Connor and all of those guys. So the LFA, I guess they're more like the Latin American community that goes into the UFC.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. That's awesome. So in your UFC career, is it usually like a number amount of fights that you contract, or how does the contracting work for UFC? I mean, I have no idea.
It really depends on each fighter, on each manager. Yeah. They can give you a 1-fight contract.
Really?
Or they can give you 4 or 6 or 8. It really depends on your manager and, of course, the results, how much they want you.
Yeah, your leverage as far as a fighter, what you accomplished.
Yeah, it really depends. Usually they do like a 3-fight contract at the beginning or 4. So... yeah, it really depends on how you get there. When my first UFC contract was 4 fights, but you can, depending on your results, you can also kind of renew your contract before it ends.
Yeah.
So it depends. It's not a general thing.
Do you have a manager?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. His name is George Guimarães. He's a Brazilian guy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I tell people all the time, like when you're talking contracts and you're talking about, big business decisions, it's very important to have people in your corner that care about you and your success long term, because you could sign something that screws you over, and what it'll do is it'll prolong your success. Like shit, like I'm stuck in this shit contract when I could be doing so much more, whether it is being where you want to be or making as much income as you should be making per your talents,
Yeah, but also as a fighter and what I've seen in the past, years, is that you cannot just give it to your manager's hands. You also have to be involved. Yeah, the fighter has to know what it's signing. Because it's not about a trust thing. It's about information. It's about really knowing all the aspects of fighting. It's not just going up in the cage and, you know, fight, because we've seen in the past, especially boxing, where a lot of boxers get screwed up because of that, you know. So be involved in your business. This is your business. So
did you read the contract completely?
I did, yeah.
How many pages is it?
Ooh, I don't, more than 200. I don't
remember. More than 200?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so
because
this is
like
a
USADA part 2. I mean, it's a UFC contract, and also you have the drug testing part, USADA.
Yeah, that's a little book then.
So yeah, it's a lot. Wow. It's a lot of information there.
That's interesting. The USADA is the drug testing portion of it. And do they just do random testing, or do you have to like test before every fight? How does that work?
It is random testing, and usually before every fight, sometimes after every fight.
Oh, wow.
So it's,
before fight, like they draw blood?
No, not blood. Usually it's just urine.
Oh, okay. I was like, damn, that sucks if you have to fight and they're like pulling
blood,
your blood.
No. Maybe after. They never did blood after, but I know now they have like a system where they just pinch you a little bit, so it's not.
Oh, okay. Like a little tiny prick in your face.
Yeah.
You're about to get punched in the face. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, it was a big deal. Just get up and
I might get kicked or choked out, but like, start crying over a little prick.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you joined the UFC like almost near the pandemic time, and you had like 4 fights. Did you have to fight during the pandemic?
I did fight one time during pandemic in 2020. It was a little different. It was the first time I did the fight in the Apex in the Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it was a little bit different for sure.
Like no people in the...
No crowd. It was way more silent.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different, but in that time, I didn't really pay attention to it. Like once they closed the cage, for me was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to know your philosophy when it comes, you know, to fighting. There was this documentary with Mike Tyson, or it's called Tyson, where he talks about prepping for the fight, and he goes really into detail with it. And I was very, very interested. He's like, and he says, you know, weeks leading to the fight, I'm thinking about losing. I'm thinking about this guy beating me up and being humiliated in front of my family and the crowd, and I'm scared, and I'm thinking I'm gonna lose. As the day gets closer, I'm getting more scared. Like I'm in the back of you know, in the locker room about to fight, and I'm feeling the gloves, you know, touching my knuckles, and I'm scared. I'm getting excited. I'm walking to the ring. I'm getting more confident. He's like, I step in the ring, I'm a god. Like, you know. And he becomes like an animal, and then he wins. But, you know, everybody kind of is a little different when it comes to their psychology and their philosophy when it comes to training for a fight and actually being in combat. Some people are very cerebral, you know, they're very, you know, technical as far as who they're fighting. They do all kinds of research on them. They find out where their weak points are, and like they make a plan specifically for that one person. Other people don't give a shit. They just do what they do, and they just, you know, hope that they're going to knock them out. And other people just, you know, it's all different. So I'm always curious in hearing people's, you know, training regimen as far as prepping for a fight, and then their psychology within the ring. For you, what would you say is your fight philosophy, both in the ring and also for training?
You know, I think there's a balance for sure, but nowadays I feel you have got to be a smart athlete. I mean, it's good to do the research. It's good to have a game plan. It's good to, you know, to study, because it's not only, you're not fighting the first person they got and then fight. No, you know who you're going to fight. Yeah. So you have the chance to prepare for that fight. Yes. You know, not only the weakness, but also building up your good points and kind of restructure a lot of things that you could do better. So it's kind of both, you know, because also when I go there to fight, it's a lot of instinct things. Yeah. So I feel like those instincts, you can work them and you can polish them while you train. Yeah. You know, so I think, yes, it's more like my fight camp and everything is working towards what I want to do. And when, you know, I get there to fight, there's a lot of other things that I do more like in my instinct, and it's more natural. It's right there. You know, I've finished fights where I never do, I don't know, let's say I never do elbows, and all of a sudden I'm elbowing in the fight.
You have the opportunity, it just pops up.
Yeah. So it's kind of both. And as far as the emotional part, I get a different feeling every fight.
Really?
I do. There's fights where like I'm super calm, and even when I get to the locker room to warm up and to the fight, and I'm super chill.
Yeah.
There's others I'm super happy. There's others I'm nervous, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I'm crazy, but okay, let's do it. But I'm crazy,
Yeah.
So it really, I don't know why in my personal experience, it's been, different. It's been different.
Yeah.
Always I'm, anxious and have this kind of nervous part inside of me, which is good, but my feelings are different.
Yeah. That's it's very difficult to kind of control that fight or flight response that triggers within your body sometimes, and you don't know where it comes from. Obviously for you it's different because you're going into a ring to fight someone, but like I do podcasts, right? And for me it's the same thing every time. Like the first 5 minutes of any show, I'm nervous. I get nervous, but then there comes like a I don't know what it is, like a little flow state where I just like, and I'm like confident, I'm comfortable.
Relaxed,
and I'm a musician too, exact same thing. First song that come on, like I'm super nervous. I'm like playing, like I was a drummer and a guitar player. When I was playing drums, you're supposed to keep the tempo. I would play like 3 times faster. My guitar would be like, dude, like I can't play this fast, man. Slow. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going like way too fast. But like there's a point where you kind of just go into this flow state and you're in your zone. So that's cool. So your UFC career, you said you signed for 4 fights. How did that go? I mean, right now you're not in the UFC, so you didn't renew your contract?
Yeah, so I did 7 fights.
Oh,
7 fights.
7?
Yes, I did 7 fights. I lost my first UFC fight, win the next 3 fights, and lost the other 3 fights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any, who was the toughest fight that you had in the UFC? Or that you learned the most? Tell us a little bit about that one.
So for sure, my UFC debut was a little bit more, it was very tough because of the expectations that I had, and the nervous. I was there. The first 2 rounds, I was like, "What is going on?" You know, like look at this place. I was more shocked, like from from being in the UFC.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I learned a lot from my fight against Maria Agapova.
Okay.
I think I pronounced her name good. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think so. I learned a lot from that fight, honestly. A lot from myself.
Okay.
So
what exactly did you learn about yourself?
Patterns, emotional things that I was passing through, and I could see them in the fight.
Were you getting upset, or what do you mean by that? By emotional patterns?
From like what I was living in that moment, and like the fight camp that I did and everything, I could show it literally in the fight, and I was frustrated.
Yeah.
I was frustrated, and I could see that in the way I move and the things that I was doing. So that fight taught me a lot until like very recent that I could, start looking at it again.
Yeah.
Again and again. But I still get a little bit emotional watching it, but before it was tough,
Yeah. I mean, I could only imagine, being your debut fight, having high expectations. From the sound of it, you had a tough training camp as far as things going on outside of your life. That has nothing to do with MMA. Sometimes it affects your game, and losing your first pro fight, it's probably not a good feeling, probably not a good feeling.
No. I was super, but I was, that loss gave me a lot of strength to like really know my talent and my potential, because I knew how much I could do.
Yeah.
And it was like, I lost my opportunity to, just show my work just because I needed to wake up. So that fight gave me more like fire,
Yeah. The hardest, I tell people, suffering has a lot of lessons in it. Pain has a lot of lessons in it. Like if I'm sitting here and my stomach's hurting, there's something wrong in my stomach. Is it something that I ate? Is it, what's going on? Something needs to change in my life. If my head's hurting, like there's something wrong going on in here. My elbow's hurting, my something's hurting. The pain is there to teach you something. It's for you to change something, to become better, but most people, what happens is that they go into a cycle of either downward or upward, and it's easy to do that. The hard part is switching it from going down to up. or even the opposite way. When you're winning, you just keep winning, you know. And when you're losing, it's like, fuck, how do I get out of this cycle? And there's a lot of like sports psychologists that help athletes, you know, get out of their own way. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, to let them shine at what they're good at, you know. But it sounds like you were able to kind of learn from that experience, because then you ended up winning the next couple of fights.
Yeah, definitely. And it was important. It was important to pass through that, and also like the time off that I had after my last fight. It was very important to rebuild myself in every aspect. You know, it's been a whole year and some months of like a lot of changes in my life. Yeah. And I need that. And people, you know, sometimes you need that time to, you know, reset everything. Yeah. And like really build yourself and focus on things that you need to focus. It's not wrong to take, you know, time for your own growth. Right. You know, it's just like getting out of that circle that you're saying, and like not falling in the same patterns and doing the same things, and surround yourself with the same people if it's not working. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you working on right now as far as your MMA career and just your life in general?
So the most important mission I have right now, it's August 4th. Okay. My fight for the LFA belt, 125 pounds. It's going to be El Paso, Texas. And that's like my goal right now. That's my 24/7, which I eat, sleep, and rest for it. So yeah, my whole energy is focused in that, and like a longer term for sure, I'm, you know, trying to build those victories again. I want to go back to the UFC, but I don't like to you know, look ahead. I like to just, you know, focus on what I have to do, my mission right now. And since the beginning of my career, I always said like the most important fight is the one that you have right now.
The next fight.
Yeah,
the one in front of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't look too ahead if you haven't got here first.
No. I don't work that way. I think it's important to be present in here. Yeah. And whatever comes in the future, let's see what happens. But I need to give my 100% in my next goal. So yeah, it has a date, it has a opponent, and I'm really excited to, you know, to work. Again, go back to the cage. Yeah,
I mean, I talk about this a lot on the show. Is, you know, you have your long-term vision, your long-term goal. You know, like I want to do this, I want to do that, but then you also have to create small, short-term goals and focus on those. Because sometimes if you focus too far ahead, you will sabotage yourself. And the way you sabotage is like, man, that's so far away, you know, it's so big. Like you start to kind of doubt yourself, like, am I going to get there? Am I not going to get there? But if you focus...
It's hard to even organize your life. Like, oh, I want to do all of this thing. No. But what can you do now? Yeah. What can you do for, yes, you want to accomplish all this, but you need to set up some goals for the now to be able to get there. But if you start thinking of too far away, I don't know, it's a little bit vague to think that way.
Right. So you have a face to your opponent. Yes. I'm interested in this as well, because some people look at their opponents in different ways. And I have my own philosophy when it comes to you know, competition and opponents. I think they're very, very important. It's so important for you to have tough opponents to challenge you, to help you get better. Some people look at them as like, this person's trying to prevent everything that I'm doing. They're my enemy. Other people look at them as like, it's just an obstacle. How do you view your opponent?
You know, lately what I've been feeling is I'm kind of grateful that, you know, I'm fighting again, and that she accepted the fight. Yeah. So right now the feeling that I have is not about like some hate or anything. It's more like towards like, you know, thank you for stepping Gratitude. Here up, and because it takes two. It takes two to fight. Yeah. So I'm just, you know, very grateful that she is gonna be there, that I can fight for the LFA belt, and you know, it's not that I wish nothing to her. I just want to do my work. Yeah. And I want to get that victory. It doesn't matter how, but I want to get that victory. So I'm just grateful that she's going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people don't sign those contracts, or they back out last minute. So gratitude is a good way to look at it in anything you do, whether it's, fighting or anything else. You should be grateful to have the opportunity, because there's so many people that don't even have the opportunity to do that. So that's very interesting. So your fight is going to be August 4th in El Paso, Texas for the LFA flyweight belt. Yeah. Where is it going to be aired? Does it come out on a network, or do you have to download an app? How does LFA show their fights?
So all the LFA fights go in UFC Fight Pass.
Okay.
So download the app, UFC Fight Pass, and you can watch through there. Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, make sure to download UFC Fight Pass to watch Sabina fight on August 4th in El Paso, Texas. She's going to be fighting for the LFA Championship belt, the flyweight belt, against, it was Sandra
Lavado.
So I'm very excited to see that fight. Hopefully you kick her in the head.
Yes, many times.
Many times. Is there any message that you want to give to aspiring MMA fighters, or anybody that's in, the same league as you, as far as accomplishing their goals?
I feel like not only fighters, but everyone that has a business or their work or whatever. I think if you keep constant work, you can achieve them, but it doesn't work if you go one day and the other one, oh no, I don't want to. Or you got to really give your 100% every single day, and then you're going to start noticing some changes.
Yeah.
So for fighters, I know it's hard. They cancel fights, or you get injured, or there's so many things. But if you give your 100% on each day, I think it's going to get you closer to your goals and to the point where you're going to, you want to be.
Yeah. So, consistency is key, you know, and I was a personal trainer for many years, and, I'll tell the people the same thing. Like, I would sell personal training packages, right? And I was like, you can do 2 times a week, 3 times a week, but you're going to be training in the gym 5 times a week, whether you're here with me or not.
Yeah.
Like, you told me this is what your goal is, right? You want to lose 30 pounds, 40 pounds by this date because you're getting married, or because, whatever the reason is. And one thing is very important. You have to have a big why, a big reason as to why you want to succeed in this chosen path of yours. And I would see it over and over again. Like, people come in like, oh, I just want to get in shape. Like, why do you want to get in shape? Like, when you have a vague goal like that, I'm like, bro, you're going to quit after like the first set, because I'm going to beat the shit out of you.
Exactly.
And you're going to be sore. You're not going to want to come back tomorrow. But then there would be other people who would be like, man, my ex-girlfriend left me for some other guy because, she called me fat or whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, this guy's definitely going to get in shape. Like, bro, you just gave me you have all the reasons to get in the best shape of your life. So when you have a big why, a big purpose behind your goal, it's going to push you through those hard times. And like you said, be consistent. You can't expect big results with a little bit of work. Sometimes people really underestimate the amount of effort and work that it takes to succeed in anything. Yeah. If you think what you're doing right now is enough, it's not. Do more.
But also, I'm not trying to not say, like, try to rest whatever I just said, but also something very important that I've seen lately, it's the rest, the rest time.
Yeah.
Because yes, you got to be consistent, but you got to be consistent with the rest as well.
Yeah.
You got to give your body and your mind and, enough rest to keep going. Because you are not a machine. You really have to. Exactly.
We're human. And, it's funny you mentioned that, because we're talking about exactly, we're human beings. We are made of flesh and blood. We breathe oxygen. We are all the same in that way. Everybody has different energy reserves. You got to understand your body. You got to understand, certain limits. Nutrition is very important. If you're training like a monster, but you're eating like shit, you're not going to be working optimally. You're going to constantly be tired, fatigued. You might even injure yourself. also your liquids were made of like 60% water. If you're not hydrating properly, you're drinking alcohol on the weekends or even during the week, and you're dehydrating yourself, and then you're waking up and you're training, like you're burning the candle at both ends. You're not going to be optimal. So there is a way where you can push yourself and challenge yourself, but still have adequate amount of rest and recovery. One of the main things is your nutrition. And the other thing is, obviously, you have to find ways to, you could get burned down psychologically,
exactly.
too. You could get burned down
psychologically. That's very important, too, You have to have an escape. Get out of that routine as well. Because, yes, you got to be consistent, but there's some points where you need your body to reset. Nutrition-wise. When I went to college, I went to study nutrition.
Okay.
And I really like it, but it's also knowing when you really have to push. For sure, you got to be very strict with your nutrition, especially fighters. We have to make weight, but you got to give your body a rest.
Yeah.
You got to reset it. You have to kind of get out of that zone because it's not healthy.
Yeah.
We live in planet Earth, you know, so we have some desires. We can eat outside. Like being out and eating out doesn't mean that you're not an athlete.
Yeah.
Or
I gave my clients a cheat day. Typically if they were bodybuilders, you get a cheat meal.
You know what I feel about that?
Yeah.
It's for a lot of people, not everyone, but nowadays it creates an anxiety, and it creates I can't wait for that cheat day. I can't wait for that cheat day. I feel you got to balance your food, enjoy your food in the day to day to be able to have this for a long time. If not, you're going to be there like 3 months, and then you're going to be sick of it and start eating bad the whole time. So I feel it's a balance. Put good food and nutrition food that tastes good in your day to day. And yes, get out whenever you feel like, but creating also this pattern, every Friday I have to go eat out, and you start, for a lot of people it's not too healthy, mentally. So whatever works, and that's the other thing, like everyone is different. So whatever works for you, it's for you,
Yeah, you have to understand yourself before you decide, because there's a lot of different ways to go about, how do they say it? There's a lot of ways you can cook something, like you cook a burger in a lot of different ways. Well, not really, you can only cook it one way, but whatever. There's a lot of ways you can do certain things, accomplish a goal. But knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, I'm susceptible to this, I'm susceptible to that. Like, you gotta find different ways of making things work. But at the end of the day, it's always down to you, and what your choices are in life. But Sabina, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story and your insight. It was a pleasure knowing your story, and I'm really, really excited to see your fight on August 4th. I know I'm going to be watching it on UFC Fight Pass. Guys, make sure to subscribe to the Dreams to Reality podcast on YouTube. Follow our IG. Sabina, where can people find you? Do you have a website, or what is your IG handle?
Yeah, so Sabina Mazo on Instagram, Facebook, basically everywhere. Just Sabina Mazo. There's not a lot of them.
Yeah, I think you're the only one. There's only one Aníbal too. So Aníbal. Actually, it's not. There's a lot of Aníbal Rodriguez. I always thought I was like a rare name, but I guess there's more of me out there. So guys, also make sure to check out Black House MMA. We are in the ring here in Gardena. It's a beautiful gym. Like I mentioned, if you guys want to train with some of the best fighters in Southern California, this is the place to be. And we'll see you guys next time.